Hey, what's good? Today, fellas, we're jumping into my top 5 weapons y'all should be using here on Rebirth Island. And of course, I made another top 5 that's got some really awesome weapons in there as well. But these are some more awesome guns you guys should be able to be using. And it's great that I can make these style of videos and have a variety of different weapons to give you guys because the meta is pretty open. So there's a lot of really solid things that you can use that are actually quite viable and very easy to use. But before any farther into the video, I want to give a shout out to the Noti Gang. If y'all want to be featured in a future video, make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe to all notifications turned on, comment down in the comment section below Noti Gang, and make sure you watch the video all the way through. With that being said, let's head into these class setups. Okay, so for our first one here, I'm going to be taking a look at is a Modern Warfare Cr56 Amax. This gun is unbelievably good. I absolutely love the Amax. I think it's got a really solid TTK. The recoil is pretty easy to manage. It's gonna have a little bit there. It's gonna bounce around a tad, but it hits really hard. And it's also a gun that pretty much every single person that plays Warzone has access to, which is another really good thing. So let's hop into a build here for the Amax. Okay, so hopping into this here, our first thing is going to be the muzzle. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna hop in to get a mono suppressor. You definitely want to stay away from the lightweight or the tactical. If you don't happen to have the mono unlocked for whatever reason, run the tactical until you can get that, because the lightweight will decrease your damage range, and that is not something you ever want to do on any of your ARs. So the mono suppressor is going to be the way to go. After that, in the barrel section, we have the XRK Zodiac S440. This is going to be the largest barrel possible, and the rest of these other ones here are going to be pretty much SMG style barrels, and I would not recommend that at all. I mean, genuinely, just run the XRK Zodiac, call it a day. I mean, you don't have to think too much about it. Damage range, bullet velocity, and of course, recoil control. It's very simple, very easy. After that, in our barrel section, though, we have the command of foregrip here for recoil stabilization and aiming stability. I have seen other people try to run something like maybe the Ranger foregrip, which you can for sure do, but I'll tell you right now that it's going to slow you down here a lot more so than the commando foregrip. So if you feel like the recoil is too much with the Amax with having the commando, then maybe try out the Ranger, and that should help out with that recoil. But otherwise, the commanded foregrip is basically just the way I suggest to go, pretty much 9 times out of 10, or 10 times out of 10 for me, but maybe 9 times out of 10 for somebody that can't control the recoil as much. But after that, though, we have the magazine, and we pretty much have the 45 round mag. I mean, you basically have to run the 45 round magazine on this thing. It's either that or you run the basic 30, and we're for sure not using the M67 10 round. This kind of makes this gun into a DMR, and we're definitely not trying to make this into a marksman rifle of any sort. So I'll run the 45 round magazine, kind of call it a day. And then for our final attachment here, the VLK 3x optic. I love the VLK. I think it's really solid. But if you guys do not want to run the VLK and you feel like maybe the recoil is a bit too much for some of that range, maybe run something like the Corp Combat Hollow Sight. That's gonna be pretty sick. Or if you want to get a little bit crazy with it, you know what I'm saying, you guys could go down here and run the PBX7 Hollow, which is basically going to be the same thing as the Corp Combat. It's just going to look visually slightly different, but it's basically going to do the same exact thing as the Corp Combat. It just looks a little bit cooler in my opinion, but a lot of people just stick to the Corp Combat or the VLK 3x optic. But this is my full build here for the Cr56. Absolutely love this gun. I think it's pretty solid, and definitely something you guys should be using here on Rebirth. Okay, so our next gun here is going to be the Cr56. I love the Cr56. This is the Kilowhopper version, by the way. That's why it's going to be doing all those sparkles and stuff, and I have diamond cam on it. But the Cr56 is definitely underrated. It doesn't have that much recoil nowadays. I mean, you can definitely still control it very easily. You just have to pull down on the stick ever so slightly, and you're going to be beaming people from pretty much across the map. And it's actually got super low visual recoil, which is something that I find incredibly beneficial, because even guns that have like low recoil sometimes still have a little bit of visual, and it makes the, you know, the sight bounce around a little bit when it doesn't necessarily need to. This gun has virtually none of that, and you're going to be able to hit your shots. It's going to be super accurate and very easy to use. I've been using this here recently, and I think it's really fun, and you guys should definitely be checking this gun out. So let's hop into a setup for it. Okay, so first thing in here, we're going to hop into the muzzle category for that agency suppressor. Sound suppression, vertical recoil control, bullet velocity, course effective damage range. We love this thing. I definitely wouldn't want to run the regular suppressor. The only way I would recommend that is if you're trying to make an AR into an SMG hybrid or like a sniper support. We're trying to use this as a true AR, so the agency is definitely going to be the way to go. After that, though, in the barrel section, the 15 CMV mil spec. This is going to be like the task force barrel equivalent, and I would suggest to run this one. I know a while back, a lot of myself and the boys would run the Ranger barrel just because you wanted a tad bit more mobility here, because the CMV is going to slow you down more so, but you definitely need that nowadays. Ever since they nerfed this thing a little while ago, you definitely need that CMV mil spec barrel, as this is just 110% the way to go, without a doubt in my mind. After that, though, in the underbarrel section, the field agent grip here, horizontal and vertical recoil control. Gotta love this thing. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty easy to, you know, throw on there. It's gonna help out the most out of any of these other ones in here. Wouldn't recommend anything else besides the field agent grip. That's at the magazine section. This is where it comes down to a little bit personal preference here. I've run the 45 round magazine on this thing just because I like my mobility, but even though I'm a 60 round magazine kind of guy, that's what I like to do. The 60 is just not necessarily the way for me here on Rebirth Island. If I was playing something like maybe Caldera, I'd probably definitely consider running this Stenag 60 just so I have more rounds to dispense, you know, maybe it's sometimes with longer ranges, but for me, Rebirth, you kind of get into like a certain, you know, I guess space of engagements, and I don't feel like I need, you know, 60 rounds in my magazine. I'd rather just be able to traverse the map a little bit easier, and having 45 allows me to do that. And for our final attachment here, the Axle Arms 3 times. I love this thing. I mean, it's just one of the clear sights out here, and unlike the Amax, I wouldn't necessarily recommend to use pretty much anything else out here. I had seen people a little while ago thinking the Sussat multi-zoom was kind of like, you know, meta or something like that, but I definitely don't think so nowadays. It's just the Axle Arms, and that's pretty much it. So this is my full build here for the much you call it the Cr56. I was almost forgetting the name there. If you guys enjoyed this one, definitely go ahead and throw it on your classes. I mean, seriously, this thing, it still really hits like pretty hard. Now our next gun is going to be the Milano. This Milano right here, I'm not going to cap, it seems like you got a bit of a silent buff or a stealth buff. I've had a lot of people in my comment section telling me about the Milano. I've gone and used it myself, and I will tend to agree that this thing definitely feels like it's been hitting harder a lot more recently. So definitely you guys should be using this gun. Very low recoil, pretty easy to use, great magazine count. I mean, there's not a lot of real downsides to this gun, and of course it's got a pretty cool variant here as you can see on screen. So that being said, let's hop into a setup for this gun that you guys are absolutely gonna love. Okay, so first thing on this gun here, muzzle category, you're gonna throw on the agency suppressor, though I actually have been able to get away with running the sound suppressor. If you feel like you need a little bit more mobility out of this gun, then you can definitely run the sound and you'll be fine with that. But I mean, I personally run the agency, though I have had good success pretty much trying out either or. It just comes down to a little bit more personal preference. For me right now, the agency is the way to go. At that, in the barrel section, we have the 10.6 task force. Definitely need to run this barrel here. Effective damage range, bullet velocity, and of course strafe speed. I mean, this is just like a goated barrel. I mean, like strafe speed, bullet velocity, and effective damage range. I mean, that's like three things we absolutely love, and we get all three of them on one attachment, so that's really good. So I'd recommend this. Don't even worry about that vertical and horizontal recoil. This thing really has hardly any at all. So yeah, just run this barrel. At that though, in the under barrel section, we got the bruiser grip here, movement speed and hipfire accuracy. Gotta love this thing. I mean, very easy to use. It's just an attachment that when you throw it on, it's not going to have any sort of downsides to it, any cons. It only just benefits you, just because obviously there's no cons, but it just feels like that movement speed is always really good. And then the hipfire accuracy, getting that benefit as well. Like, I don't ever feel like there's a con when using a bruiser grip on pretty much any sort of SMG build. So that's the reason I like running this, sometimes even over the Tiger Team Spotlight. That's that though. In the magazine section, we got the Stenag 55 round drum. I mean, it just increases your ammo capacity. I mean, it does obviously, of course, mess with your ADS time, your reload quickness here a little bit, but the reload speed really isn't all that bad, to be honest with you guys. And I mean, I don't really notice a difference on my ADS speed. This gun's pretty easy to ADS with, and it doesn't really seem to like affect it too much. So I'd recommend just run the Stenag 55 round drum. Also impartial, because this thing doesn't hit like the absolute hardest. So sometimes I feel like having extra rounds in the magazine can be very, very useful, especially if you're playing Rebirth, you know, trios and quads. I mean, having a little bit of extra rounds is never a bad thing. After that, for our final attachment though, we got the Raider stock, ADS fire movement speed, aim, walking movement speed, and sprint to fire time. This is definitely a really solid option. I've actually tried running the SAS Combat before. I've even tried running pretty much like, what is it, the wire stock, which is about as close to the no stock as you can possibly get, or even the Duster stock. But I mean, really, the Raider stock is just gonna be the way to go. There's no real ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is just the most meta attachment in the stock section for this gun. This is my full build here for this gun. Absolutely love this thing. Super solid, and it's definitely a trusty secondary that seems to have gotten stealth buffed. I'm not messing with you. It really seems like it has. Okay, for our next gun up here, we're gonna be taking a look at the Vargo 52. This is a new assault rifle for the Cold War section of guns. This is actually really solid, and I have used this as an AR. I've used this kind of as like a hybrid, you know, AR SMG, and I'll definitely say that this thing performs better as of right now as a hybrid AR SMG, kind of as like a secondary, like a sniper support. So that's the way we're to be building this gun out here today. It's got a real like solid TTK. It's also really satisfying to use, which is definitely something you kind of look for in a gun. Like, if it's satisfying, it's that much more fun to use. So that being said, let's hop into a build here for this thing, because it's really solid, and I just don't see many people using it, probably because they haven't unlocked it yet or something crazy, because the unlock challenge is a little bit nuts. Okay, so first thing on here, we're gonna have the suppressor, and in the muzzle category, And the reason we're running the regular suppressor here instead of the GRU is because we're making this into a hybrid AR SMG. So that's the reason we definitely need to increase our mobility and our close range effectiveness. So the suppressor is going to be the way to go for this one. After that, we're going to go straight to the laser section here for the Tiger Team Spotlight for that movement speed and a walking movement speed. This is definitely a better option than going into anything in the outer barrel section. The recoil is not something you really need to mess with on this gun, especially if you're using this for closer quarter situations. It's pretty easy to manage, to be honest with you guys. After that, we're going to go down to the magazine section, and you have the option to run the Spetsnaz 60 round magazine, but what I'd suggest right now is instead of running the 60 round magazine, run like the VDD 60 round fast mag. Though I did definitely see they actually put out a patch to kind of combat some of the issues in terms of the magazine reloading and not technically reloading all the way. So you guys should definitely try running the Spetsnaz 60 instead of the VDV 60 round fast. But if you still have issues where it doesn't actually reload properly and it's still glitched, then recommend running the fast mag on this thing. So, but for now, just run the 60 round fast mag, the 60 round mag, I mean, my bad. Or you can even go a little crazy with it and run the 45 you want to get for a little bit more peak mobility. That's just gonna be kind of how it is. But overall, I still like this gun regardless, even if it had a bit of a glitched reload. And I know it says it's level 1, by the way. The gun's just glitched out. It's not like an unlock tool or anything. It's just glitched. I don't know why. They can't ever do anything right with this game. After that, though, in the rear grip section, we have the Serpent wrap here, and this is going to increase our ADS time, and it's going to decrease our sprint to fire ever so slightly, but don't worry, our next attachment will offset any of that. But this is definitely just going to make you more effective at close range. The faster you can bring up your gun, obviously, the better. But that's pretty much that. For our last attachment, though, we have the KGB skeletal stock, ADS fire move speed, aim, walking move speed, and sprint to fire time. Overall, 3 great pros for this thing. It says it negatively impacts your hip fire accuracy, but I mean, to be honest with you, you're not really hip firing with an AR, so that doesn't matter at all. So that's the reason we're running this thing, but this is my full build here for the Vargo 52. I like this gun quite a bit, super satisfying to use, very fun to use as a hybrid. And I'd recommend it. I mean, it's just good, to be honest. And for our final gun here in this top 5, we're going to be taking a look at the Lapa SMG. This is a really cool variant here, by the way. Absolutely love the Lapa. I mean, I don't use it nearly as much as I should because it actually hits really hard, and it's very easy to use, to be honest, but I don't die by it all that often in Rebirth, even though it's got a solid TTK. I mean, it's pretty easy to use. I mean, it doesn't have the greatest iron sight, so you have to kind of combat that, but otherwise, I mean, this is a gun that's very underutilized, and I think more people should definitely be given a chance. So if you haven't used this thing, definitely check out this build here in this video. So that being said, let's do it. Okay, so for our first thing, muzzle category, of course, we're going to throw on the agency suppressor. This is going to make us more effective here at, outside of pretty much piss close range. So the agency is just kind of like the way to go, at least for that one. I think it works pretty nicely, though. If you want a little bit more mobility, you can definitely try running the sound suppressor, and that could actually work out pretty nicely as well. So I haven't tested this one out, so I can't really vouch for that. I've tried out the agency, and I do believe it works very nicely, though. After that, in the barrel section, we got the rifled barrel. This is going to increase our damage and our fire rate, which is really solid, though this also decreases your effective damage range and bullet velocity. So that's why we need the agency to kind of help out with that sort of offset right there. So that's the reason we're running the agency for this build. But the rifle barrel is really solid. I have seen other people try to run the BR Compact, but I'm not necessarily as much of a fan of the BR Compact. I prefer the rifle barrel. After that, in the underbarrel section, we got the bruiser grip here for movement speed and hip fire accuracy. I definitely got to make sure we're very mobile with this gun, and we can move around quite efficiently, and that's what this is going to allow us to do. After that, though, in the magazine section, we got the 40 round magazine here for ammo capacity, but what you guys can definitely do if you want to be a little bit more agile, or a little bit less agile, I should say, and deal with have some more ammo in the mag, you can run the Stenag 50, but I wouldn't ever recommend going for the fast mag or something like that. It's just not really beneficial on this gun. So run the 40 or 50. It's a little bit up to you guys, but I've ran the 40 and the 50. Both work out pretty nicely, but sometimes I just got a bit of a kick where I want a little bit more mobility, and this just happened to be one of those times where I was using the 40, and so this is the class I'm recommending to you guys. For our final attachment here, though, we're going to replace the iron sights here with the Microflex LED, and the reason we're replacing the iron sights is because they're pretty hard to look through, to be honest. They really are hard to see, no matter if you're on PC, you got the great FOV, whatever it may be, you're playing 1440p, I mean, they are just hard to look through, and so you want to be able to acquire your targets and be able to see them. And so we have to use the Microflex. So that's going to be my full build here for the Lapa. That's my full top 5. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you're brand new, and just run to a cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.